All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell. Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll free 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X Zone Radio TV. And our main website, where you can listen to the X Zone Radio Show 7/24/365, is www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is Lisa Barretta. She is a practicing astrologer, a member of NCGR, that's the National Council for Geocosmic Research, AFA, that's the American Federation of Astrologers, and ISIR, the International Society for Astrological Research. She practices as an intuitive counselor, certified Reiki practitioner, and researcher in the fields of consciousness and psychic sensing. Her ability in astrology, I should say the astrological declination, coupled with the uncanny intuitive insight, has secured a loyal following in the United States and abroad. Joining me now is Lisa Barretta. And Lisa, welcome to the X Zone.
Thank you for having me on. I look forward to it.
It's always great talking to you, Lisa. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and what was it that made you or pushed you in the direction of becoming an astrologer as well as an intuitive counselor and Reiki practitioner?
Well, this wasn't something that came about when I was older. More so when I was younger. I just always felt connected to past lives as a child. I would sit and I would draw pictures of things that my mom thought were just my imagination. But as I got older, I started to thread it together. By the time I was 7 years old, I knew I was a Pisces, and I knew everything about Pisces. And I even went further, and I started to, go to the library. We didn't have computers back in the day, so I would go in the occult section and pull out books on astrology and energy, anything I could get my hands on. And then when I got older, I started to make connections with other people that were interested in the field, and I had, people who were very proficient in astrology start to teach me how to work with it. And, it is really not about fortune telling. It's about your potential and your possibilities. So once I mastered astrology, then I started to get into the tarot, and then from there just intuitive healing and readings and Reiki, and I'm so interested, and I'm still continuing to research consciousness.
Why do you think so many people in the year 2014 are so interested in astrology, psychic intuition, consciousness, and all the other wonderful things that you and I talk about?
Well, I think there's really, everybody right now is starting to feel we need a change. And for so long, we have been conditioned by these dogmas and false fears, and we have been taught not to believe in ourselves, but to believe in outside forces that have control, and we lost control over our own lives. So now we're going through this mass awakening where everybody wants to feel their authentic self, take control of their lives, and get rid of this fear that we seem to be blanketed in that just completely disrupts our way of living.
It's time to take the power back.
Exactly.
We can see the same thing happening in politics. It went from we the people to I the person. And it's about time we all got together, because without us, there is no I the person. And it's nice to see that same thought process going into the topics that you and I are going to be talking about tonight here in the X Zone. The internet, has that been a help or a hindrance to astrology?
Well, I believe that what it did, the internet has made astrology more available to everyone, but then again, it's still seen as something, a very commercial type of fun and games type of a modality instead of what it's really meant for. I mean, this is an empowering science that the ancients used. This isn't anything new. As they say, nothing new under the sun. But by learning to work with it, you can actually empower yourself, but not in a selfish sort of way. It helps you. It keeps you on track. It's, like I said earlier, it's meant to show you your potential and your possibilities. But at the end of the day, you have the last word. It's your own free will and the choices that you make that either bring something about or derail you. So it's, once again, you have to take your power back for your own choices and go to astrologers or intuitives for guidance, not for a quick fix.
Lisa, you and I have to take our first commercial break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Exonation, Lisa Barretta is our special guest this hour. www.lisabarretta.com. That's www.lisabarretta.com. And Lisa and I are going to be talking about astrology. We're going to be talking about the universal language of synchronicities. We're going to be talking about the planet Earth's position within the galaxy. Does this really matter? All this and more this hour with our special guest, Lisa Barretta. My name is Rob McConnell. This is The X Zone. We'll be back in 2. Don't go away. Exonation, my guest this hour is Lisa Barretta. Her website is www.lisabarretta.com. Lisa, do you think the expansion of the consciousness is due to the planet Earth's position within the galaxy?
Oh, I absolutely do. I believe we're at a time right now where we're all going through this big transformation. And torsion waves from the galactic center, they travel at a super radiant speed, and they affect psi energy. So basically what these waves are doing is they're starting to activate all of these, so everybody can understand it, let's say our apps, our higher consciousness apps. As if you have apps on your iPhone, some of them you can't access until the program is ready. Well, we're ready now to start to realize our higher consciousness because we are all psychic. Everybody has the ability to be intuitive and psychic. It's just that we're not taught about it. So if we're not taught about it or told about it, we just limit it to just, a small group of people that have knowledge of these abilities.
Now, people say we only use 10% of our brain. Are we going to be opening up more of the brain's ability or recognize more of it? And does this have something to do with DNA clicking on?
Oh, absolutely. It does. Energy is light, and a different type of light is coming into our Earth. And what it's going to do, it's going to start to activate these centers. And I'm a firm believer that, what you put into your body also determines, like, how you are able to use your own psychic abilities. Like the pineal gland, for instance, fluoride shuts it down. And we're told you have to put it in the water because it keeps your teeth healthy, but what is it doing to the pineal gland, which is at one time was the size of a lemon, and it is atrophied down to like a tiny little size.
Wow.
This is a psychic center for us.
So how do we change things? How do we make our body more receptive? Are there ways that we can do this? Is there a thought process we can start training ourselves in?
Well, the thing that's really interesting, a lot of hospitals now are starting to incorporate wellness centers, and these wellness centers, they offer Reiki and they offer integrated medicine because we're starting to realize we're taking a pill for this and a pill for that, and then the side effects are worse than what we even went there for in the first place. So anything that happens, any type of disease that we have, of course something is genetically programmed into us, but it doesn't have to be that bad. We can change it. If you start working, let's say, outside of the box, so start thinking as your energy body, the layers of your subtle bodies that hold your emotional memory and, the program basically for your physical body, when you start to change the way you think and you start to change your energy patterning, then you can start to avoid a lot of physical complications because anything that happens in the material world first has to happen up in the energy levels. So that's where you have to fix it. And it's interesting that they're using Reiki now to to start to, channel energy where there are blocks, going into actual past lives where people hold past life memories that are sometimes affecting their physical health today. So I really believe that we're going to be on the threshold of a new medicine where we start to treat not only the mind and the body, but also the spirit.
So how would you say that the spiritual awakening is going to encourage us to unshackle ourselves from the false beliefs that we have incorporated into our daily lives?
Exactly. Well, that's what inspired me to write the book of transformation, because I was sitting there one day and I was looking at a manual, a quick start guide for an appliance that I bought, and I thought, if only we had almost a quick start guide just to get people familiar with what they can do. And I kind of fashioned the book in that order, where first, be aware that you do have chakra centers, and to people who aren't aware what they are, they're the energy zones in our body, and they are basically our spark plugs. This is where we pull in the energy, but because we can't physically see them, we don't think they're there and we don't pay attention to them. But as you know, if you're around somebody that's negative, you can leave their company and your whole day can just bomb.
Yeah. Big time.
Because we are so energy sensitive, and that's what people have to start to think, not just what you can see and touch, go more with what you feel. And when you become more aware of what you feel, you have that eureka moment. It's like, okay, if something's not going your way, instead of feeding into that, start to change your thought process. And then it's amazing, the situation will start to change. And you won't see it as something bad. You will just see it as, okay, something that you just need to figure out a different way of getting around.
It's like looking at the glass and saying it's either half full or half empty.
Exactly.
Understand. How does the past lives affect the present lives, and how do we know if we have any past lives?
That's a good question. I get asked that a lot. A lot of people think, well, is it my imagination, or how do we know there are past lives? Well, first of all, we have to realize that time is not linear, like we're told. We just think it is past, present, future. Time is a wave. So anything that's gone on in a prior incarnation, and we've had prior incarnations, I've researched it, and Dr. Ian Stevenson, he did a lot of research at the University of Virginia about birthmarks as clues to your past lives. He worked a lot with children, and it was, a lot of case studies. There are people that James Langer's story, the little boy that has a past life experience of being on an airplane that was downed in World War II. And there's a lot of documented cases of past lives. And some people don't even realize it, but, certain things that they like or they dislike strongly could be places or foods or just time periods in history that they relate to. There is a link to a past life. And sometimes if you have an issue in a past life that you didn't fully resolve, you carry it forward in what they call epigenetics, because aside from just your genes that you're born with, there's the epigene, which holds cellular memory. And it's amazing, the research that they're doing now, we're starting to realize, wow, we're more than just skin and bones. There's a part of us that does live on. That's the energy body. Energy can't be created or destroyed, but it can morph and change. And we go on. We're very much eternal.
So are we talking about our spirit, our soul, our very essence?
Exactly. And like I like to say, they have diluted what our spiritual essence is. It has been licensed out to every different religious group about who has the right way, and is it a soul, and when you die, are you going to have wings? Do you go to heaven? Do you go to hell? Do you go to a place? You don't look at it that way. You have to look, this is your energy body, and when you're done, you just shed the physical body, and this spirit lives on. And a lot of people that work in hospice, like hospice workers, there have been so many stories about when somebody is beginning to pass over, they see people in the family that have preceded them in death. It's very common, and there are so many documented cases of this. Like, how can we deny that there is not some type of afterlife? That not necessarily is heaven or hell, but there is an afterlife.
So let me ask you, Lisa, in your opinion, What happens to us at the end of our physical body when we go from this embodied spirit to being a free spirit? I use I look at it that we're just like the caterpillar who turns into a butterfly, the metamorphosis. What happens to the body? Do we go to heaven? Is there a heaven? Is there a hell? Or is this just control that's been given to us by the religious philosophies?
I myself personally feel I went all through Catholic school, so I was taught by nuns. So they had their way of like, when you die, you will go to heaven or hell, and you're either punished or rewarded. And to me, that my personal feeling, that was a false belief, because your consciousness lives on. And what it does, it will stream through, and it may, there are cases that people, when they have their next incarnation, maybe necessarily don't go on to like the year ahead. You can even have an incarnation where you go back into a different time period, or maybe you go way off into the future. It's wherever your consciousness takes you. And we should start to change our view of death, where we see it as something morbid and a total ending. It's not, it's a continuation. And when I helped produce the documentary Surviving Death, a Paranormal Experience, it was, we were looking into what is consciousness and does it survive death? And what are hauntings? What are ghosts? Is it residual energy, or are we just projecting something? It's fascinating, and I believe this is going to be our next big field of exploration, our consciousness.
Everything that we know of has a beginning and has an ending. Let me ask you this. What is our true beginning?
Our true beginning, well, there are a couple different theories that people have. Some feel that, we were just always this, ball of energy that somehow took shape, and we have been with the universe since its inception. And it's just we have developed our consciousness through our experiences. And that's how I'd like to look at it. That's my own personal view, that, we are, and that we started somewhere, but are we going to end? Is there a final level of consciousness that we reach where we just become just part of the universe all over again and start, just become part of this big glow? But I believe that, we're not limited just to this one experience here.
Oh, all right, but where did we start? How did we start? If it seems that when investigating the world of consciousness, we seem to just be taking it from the middle and going forward. But what about where it started? How do we know how it started?
That, I think, is the mystery. It's like, what started the universe? Was it the Big Bang? Was it just something that totally started to evolve and expand itself? The expanding universe? At one time they thought, what is black matter? Is that the glue that holds everything together? And if you look at the universe, it's expanding. Every day there are new galaxies that are starting. There's some that are folding, and then there's others that are openings, but it's continuing to change. And that's what I think we're doing right now, Rob. We're at a part where we're starting to evolve ourselves, but it's just not physically. It's our consciousness. We are going to surpass our technology.
I hope so. Lisa, you and I have to take a news break at the bottom of the hour. Please stand by. Exonation Lisa Barretta is our special guest. www.lisabarretta.com. And Lisa and I will be back on the other side of the news as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't forget to sign the online petition at www.stopebolapetition.com. Welcome back, everyone. Lisa Barretta is our special guest, and Lisa is also the author of the Street Smart Psychic's Guide to Getting a Good Reading, and informative and at times humorous book that offers inside advice on how to tap into the world of psychic energy. And she is also the author, I believe, of another book entitled The Book of Transformation. Her website is www.lisabarretta.com. All right. So I guess that this is going to be a global awakening. How do you think people are going to accept this awakening?
Well, like any time there is some type of a change, people are usually a little bit reluctant when they're pushed out of their comfort zone. But in my work as an intuitive counselor, I started to chronicle different things that a lot of people are going through. As you start to go through this shift, all of a sudden you may find that that job that you had for 10 years no longer suits you. And it's not just people who are going through a midlife crisis. There are people that are in their 20s and 30s that are feeling dissatisfied. It's about being authentic. It's nobody wants to feel trapped. It's you want to live your own truth. And everyone's starting to feel this little by little. And not everyone goes through an awakening at the same time, just as children are not all potty trained at the same age. But eventually everybody's going to get it. We're all being pushed out of our comfort zone right now to start to realize that it's just not the material world that matters. There's much more than just the material world.
You mentioned children, and there's a lot of talk these days about indigo children. What is your opinion?
Well, I believe that we call them indigos, so this way people will have an idea, okay, well, they're children that are different. And, what it is, we're upgrading as a species, and it's a good thing we are. We would still be cavemen.
Yeah.
So basically what they are our transition into a different way of thinking and sensing. A lot of these kids we call indigo children, they have been diagnosed. The structure says, let's say they have ADD, they can't sit still. Usually they're very creative, they're musical, they don't like traditional jobs, they have sensitivities to food, especially, preservatives and additives, things that basically aren't good for you. So, and they've also been classified as a group of children who seem very angry. And what are they angry about? They're angry at all of this false doctrine that has been shoved down our throats, all of the secrecy. They can find out who you're talking to on Facebook and listen into your phone calls and know everything about you, but you can't know anything about the truth. And we're starting to see a lot of people question what we were considering the establishment. So they're making this breakthrough, and sometimes not very gracefully, but yet they're making the breakthrough, which leads us on to the next group of children, which they call the crystal children, and a lot of them have been considered autistic and nonverbal, but could it be that maybe they have just a different way of communicating? They're more sensitive to energy. A lot of them don't like loud noises. They don't like arguing. And instead of looking at these kids as freaks or unusual, we should start to honor that, this is our transition stage into a different way of living. And pretty soon we all have to make this shift because the material world really will let you down.
But
it could be here today and gone tomorrow.
Yeah, I understand and I can appreciate that. But how do we know that these children really do not have any special abilities, that they have a genuine problem caused by something that their parents have eaten during the pregnancy or some pills or whatever? How do we know that they are the transitions that a lot of people hope they are?
Well, that's how come there have been so many books and shows and studies done on these kids, as, that we're calling them the indigos, because it's easy just to say they're not acting what we consider normal, so let's just blame it on this or blame it on that. But maybe further studies, if we start looking at them and looking at their energy, their consciousness, the more we get involved in studying the field of consciousness, we may find that, hey, maybe their DNA is clicking a little bit different than ours. Maybe, their brains are firing off a little differently, but there is not money for research for this type of study because it's still considered fringe. And that's how come the University of Virginia and Duke University, they used to have departments that studied parapsychology, but there's no funding. There's no funding to really get into it, so you have to rely on, small little groups that are studying it. And I believe once we do really get into it, we're going to find out they are our upgrade. It's just the computers that we had 10 years ago are nothing compared to the computers we have today. And like I said, our own energy is our greatest technology.
Give me examples.
Of an indigo child? Or what an indigo child would be?
Of the energies, how our energies are upgrading.
Our energies are upgrading because the chakra centers, which we have in our body, the root chakra, which is at the base of your spine. We'll just start out with that one.
Okay.
A lot of people don't even know what it is. If you take yoga, you become aware that this is where you pull in your kundalini energy. It's your root energy. It's where you ground yourself. When you start to develop and you start to become more aware of I do have a psychic sensing ability. Animals use it all the time. Why aren't we using it? Because we've become lazy and we rely too much on technology. But once you open up that center, that is your center for psychic smell. That's how come when some people go on paranormal investigations, they can smell energy. Someone will walk into a room and say they smell a cigar. And then you find out that possibly the person that lived there, maybe they were a cigar smoker. And so like I said, because there isn't a lot of funding or people don't understand it, it's like, well, how can we believe it? So once you start to realize you have these centers, and if you start to open them up, you start to experience your psychic abilities. Most people get the gut feeling in that one chakra, in their gut chakra. A lot of people say, I walked into that room and I just had a gut feeling that things weren't right. That's because you're holding your intuition there. And usually I try to do a monthly blog. My last 2 blogs were starting to educate people more how to recognize when these chakras open up and not just consider it just a passing feeling. It's like, wait, there's something there. Let me use this ability. It's like working with enhanced senses. You're just not working with your physical sight, your physical smell, your physical taste. You're learning how to sense energy and taste energy and actually psychically see energy and feel the energy. And once you master that, you can live a more enhanced life. And it doesn't mean greedy, you can get more money or get more things, but it's actually a more peaceful existence because you feel more empowered.
If this is the way that it is going to be, and I love the changes that you're talking about, why isn't mainstream science and mainstream society jumping on the bandwagon? Why is it the fringe that are really pushing this?
Well, mainstream science deals with biology. Okay, we're dealing with what people call parapsychology, metaphysical. And, even Einstein, he believed that there was more to us than just the physical. But like I said, there isn't funding. And if there isn't funding, any research that's done usually winds up on a blog or in a book or somebody just puts together a little LinkedIn group. And you have to, search this out yourself. And eventually, hopefully, in the Book of Transformation, I wrote that I hope that someday we get to the point where we realize we can take our power back because we've been told we don't have this. If you believe you're psychic, it's bad, it's witchcraft, it's the work of the devil. Well, why are we told that? We do have these abilities. It's just that they've been shut down and we've been told not to use them because it's bad.
Or could it be that in the past these powers have been manipulated by the wrong kind of people and society has looked at it and says, oh, no, this is just another scam, another gimmick. There's a lot of good on the internet. There is also a lot of garbage on the internet. And I still call the internet the largest septic tank that man has ever created. Because for the price of a domain name, you can get a website these days. For the you don't even have to buy a blog. You can just go on to Google Blog and away you go. So how does, maybe it's not just the fault of the consumer or the believer that is to blame. maybe those who are not responsible in the world of the paranormal and parapsychology as you are should also bear some of the blame.
Exactly. But like I always tell people too, there are good doctors and bad doctors. There are good lawyers and bad lawyers. There are good intuitives and bad intuitives.
But
you have to go with what you feel. You just can't be naive, and a lot of it, unfortunately, you have to educate yourself, and that's why I wrote the book, because it's to help people be more discerning about, hey, what they are going to tap into and what they are going to choose to believe. And you're right, I agree with you. There's so much out there. It just opened everything up. And
you see,
don't know
if there's
which one to go to first.
If there's a bad doctor out there, there are ways that you can shut that doctor down. You can get his license revoked. You can bring him to court. You can actually make him pay for what he has done. But when it comes to psychics, when it comes to those self-professed professionals on the internet, they do what they want because they don't care, because they have nothing to lose.
Well, it's not regulated, and unfortunately, that's what gives a lot of legitimate intuitives a bad name. But then, once again, we're all intuitive, so why should you just give your power away to someone else? And psychic readings are not a quick fix. It's not fortune-telling. It's been told it's fortune-telling. It's not. It's guidance, and it keeps you on your right path. It's the same way when you're on a road and you see a road sign. If you take a wrong turn, that's your choice.
Yeah.
And the good psychics do not make their clients codependent. They do not say, you have to call me back in a day to tell me what happened. They let people come to them, and you find the person you're comfortable working with. Just as you go to a doctor, you find a doctor you like. But what about all these meds that are out there? And you take it, and you think you're going to take Prozac, and you're going to be calm. It just puts you in a funk and in a state, and so many people are so doped up, they can't even function.
Right, but once again, as a person has the right to choose their psychic, they have the right to tell their doctor, no, I don't want to take that.
Right, but did you ever find anybody tried to sue a pharmaceutical company because they had a bad reaction to something?
Yes.
And, it's hard.
They've won.
And it takes a lot of money and a lot of years. And I'm sure if somebody feels that they were done wrong by a psychic, they could go after that person.
Well, according to
it's their choice to go.
You see, according to law enforcement, people don't go to them and file complaints against psychics or other practitioners of divination because of the embarrassment factor. They know they've been suckered in, and they don't want to look bad.
Well, I still say that the same thing goes. For example, I had a bad lawyer who really screwed me up. What recourse do I have? I'm going to get another lawyer to sue a lawyer?
No, well, you see, here in Canada, we have the Law Society. If you're screwed by a lawyer, you go directly to the governing body, and they investigate, and they take action. Just like up here in Canada, telling fortunes for a consideration is against the law. It's in the criminal code.
Well, the thing is, what do they consider telling fortunes? I mean, there is a difference between somebody who just wants to go to someone with a glowing palm in the window, or do you want to go to someone who knows how to work with energy, that's a professional, that has studied energy, that is well-versed in the different modalities?
Yeah.
So it's like buyer beware. The same thing when you buy a car. You can buy a new car, and it could break down. You could buy a used car, and it can break down. It is buyer beware. Same thing.
It is buyer beware, but it should also should be labeled for entertainment purposes only, because it's not a recognized profession. There are no licensing regulations, which I think they should enact when it comes to the divination or any of the new age practitioning that is out there. There should be governmental bodies and regulatory bodies, because it protects not only the consumer, but also the legitimate people that are out there.
But the thing that you have to understand about a psychic, what a lot of people don't understand, and I did write that in my first book, The Street Smart Psychic's Guide to Getting a Good Reading. When you go to someone to cut your hair, You may like them. You may tell your friend to go to
Sure.
them. Your friend may hate them. Your energy has to match up with the other person's energy. And if you're going to somebody just because you want to be entertained, you're going to be entertained. But when you go there, you're holding a 220 line to your own energy. Make sure the person you're going to deals with it respectfully. And I did put that in the book. You don't want to go to somebody who's just, it's like a psychic sweatshop is what I call them. Because it does give the legitimate people that have worked, studied, and respectfully used this profession a very bad name.
And who do we blame for that? The consumer or the people who are in the trade, in the profession, who don't want it regulated, who don't want it licensed, because to them, many of them believe that, hey, you know what? We're above the law. The law doesn't apply to us.
Psychics are the oldest profession. It's
So is
nothing new.
prostitution, and it's against the law.
Well, yeah, politicians, though, they just have a license to steal sometimes, too. If
And
you
so
really
do some
wanna look.
psychics. And so do some psychics. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we continue here in the X Zone from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Welcome back to the X Zone, everyone. Lisa Barretta is our guest. Her website is www.lisabarretta.com. Let me ask you something. Do you believe that we are a designer species influenced by alien genetic engineering?
I personally do. I don't believe that, we just evolved from apes. I believe that there was some type of intervention.
But earlier I asked you what the beginning of the consciousness was, and you didn't relate to anything in our past when it came to consciousness. So,
Well, I thought you meant consciousness in general, like the original consciousness. Our consciousness in particular?
yeah.
Well, of course, I'm a fan of Zecharia Sitchin. Some people like him, some people don't know who he is, and some people don't like him. But when he was looking at the ancient Sumerian text, and he talked about the Anunnaki coming here, animals have still have a consciousness, and it's a different consciousness than our consciousness, but yet still they have a consciousness. But what came along to maybe enhance our consciousness? Were we seeded? Were we, I don't want to use the word manipulated, but were we enhanced by some other genetics or some other stream of consciousness? I personally believe it.
Why do you believe it?
I believe it because of the ancient writings. I believe there's a lot that has been hidden from us. President Eisenhower had contact with aliens.
Or are you talking about the MJ12 papers?
Yes.
They've been proven to be a hoax.
See, I don't believe that.
I do.
Believe that there's a lot that they want to tell us that's a hoax because they don't want us to
See,
know.
I don't believe in the MJ12. I don't believe there was a crash at Roswell. I don't believe that Kenneth Arnold ever saw a UFO. I don't believe there's any alien bodies in Area 51.
And I do.
Well, you know what? That's where this is the great part about life. You have believers and you have skeptics. It would be a lousy life if we all believed in the same thing, wore the same shirts, had our hair cut the same way, ate the same meals. Wouldn't it now?
That's why there's chocolate and vanilla.
Exactly. Let our listeners know where they can get copies of your books.
You can get my book, The Book of Transformation, from newpagebooks.com, and you can get The Street Smart Psychic on Amazon.com.
Lisa, I want to wish you the best of luck. Great having you with us. Continued success, and I look forward to the next time you and I meet here in the X Zone.
Thank you so much.
You take care of yourself now. Bye-bye.
Okay.
X Zone Nation, Lisa Barretta has been our guest this hour. www.lisabarretta.com. Geez, I don't know. After speaking to all the people that I speak to here, and especially Norio Hayakawa last week, I've got to agree with him. He was doing UFO research 53 years. I've been doing this show 23 years. And nothing has changed. Nothing. Whether you're talking about Bigfoot, not one has been found. Whether you're talking about UFOs, there still isn't concrete evidence that a UFO has ever been visiting this planet from another planet. Ghosts, still no exactly proof. It's a theory. It's a legend. They're myths. They're folklores. They keep us wondering, what if? After all this time of people looking up into the skies or into a haunted house, don't you agree that the answers would have been found by now? I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news as we continue here in the X Zone with yours truly, Rob McConnell, from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Because that is what we do here. We look for the truth. And 9 times out of 10, the people don't want to hear the truth. They want to keep living in their mind and in their own little worlds of make-believe.